This is how I was starting Omori.
Wait. Wait a minute. What the hell?
This is how I was at the conclusion of Omori.
Yeah, this game's alright. I'm still choked up, I'm sorry.
On the surface, Omori is categorized as a horror RPG, but this is an oversimplification. Yes, the game has jump scares. Yes, scary, horrifying things do happen in the story. But the magic of Omori is that it uses the horror genre to very boldly tell a story that most people wouldn't be brave enough to tell. It gracefully dances with a subject matter that most people would be too afraid to talk about, and when written poorly could result to an edgelord-ass story. Omori is a horror game because it will weigh heavy on your soul. This is a trigger warning, as Omori does contain themes of depression, abuse, and suicide. This game also does have the occasional jump scare. Viewer discretion is advised, and if you aren't in the right state to see or listen to these themes, reconsider continuing on. I won't be offended. As a Marine Corps veteran, I know mental health comes first. This is a vastly different kind of video than the ones I usually create, so I really need to lay down the structure of how this is all gonna go. First things first, everyone should play Omori. The first part of this video will be spoiler free to sell everyone on the experience themselves. I usually stream myself on some fun new adventure, and then release a video where we poke fun at the absurdity of the journeys that the video games offer us. Omori stands far and above anything I've ever experienced narrative-wise. With respect to the one-of-a-kind journey I had with it, I refuse to rob somebody of that journey themselves. Once we get past the spoiler-free section, I'll proceed to talk about the actual plot of the game, the beautiful depth of every character, and the tremendous effect this game had on my life. This is my attempt to make a video about why Omori is easily one of the best video games I've ever played, and to be honest, one of the best pieces of media that I've had the pleasure to experience. Omori is a turn-based RPG where you and your three friends, Kels, Aubrey, and Hiro, go off in search of a missing friend. The adventure takes place in what I call the dream world because of how fantastical the setting is. It's a world that's best described as whimsical as fuck. There are so many fun characters that have their own motivations, antagonists that you can't help but love, and the occasional weirdos who never failed to get a laugh out of me. As far as the gameplay, it holds up from start to finish. You have 4 party members with skills that help them stand out from each other. Kels is your mage, with skills that buff the team or attacks utilizing his high juice meter, which is this game's version of MP. Aubrey's your DPS. She hits really hard and she doesn't have a lot of juice. Hiro is your team's support. His skills mostly healing and sustaining the team. Omori, being the titular character, is our Joker. He's a DPS like Aubrey, but more than the other characters, his gameplay revolves on the emotion chart. This is where the depth in the combat begins to show itself. Like the traditional Fire Emblem weapon triangle, there's 3 emotional states that your allies and opponents can be in: happy, angry, and sad. Buffing and debuffing stats in battle and giving super effective or resistance to attacks. A happy character does more damage to angry ones, and will take less damage from saddened enemies, and so on. The team skills synergize with not only their own emotions, but the emotions of their enemies too. To give an example of the depth, there was a fairly unassuming bear enemy that I fought early on that would basically one-shot the entire team if left in an angry emotional state. To combat this, I kept having one person make the bear happy and attack with the rest of the team. The bear would use his turn, getting angry so it could attack, only to be made happy immediately before the attack was executed. I basically put the bear in an infinite loop of getting angry and happy, just like dating my ex. But nothing in Omori is ever really surface level, and we can learn a lot about the characters simply based off their skills. Kel is lovable, but he can be a little annoying. Some of his skills are based off of annoying his teammates or his enemies. Aubrey has a very bubbly personality, so a lot of her skills are based off of happiness. Hero's skills are all about healing his teammates, moving their emotions to a neutral state, or even charming opponents so that they focus on him. This clearly shows his charming and caring nature. Omori's skills are all about making himself or his opponents sad, but also exploiting the emotional states of those that he's against. He even literally has an attack called Exploit. Much more on all of this later. This helps the characters feel fleshed out rapidly, making a personal connection very natural and easy. You ever get that wonderful feeling when you meet somebody new and the two of you just click immediately? Like you just met this person, but you feel like you've known each other forever? That's kind of how I felt about the party members. And it's pivotal to the story that you care as much as possible for each party member. And even the combat reinforces that connection. Last but not least, there's a bar at the bottom of the screen that fills up when party members get hurt, with a cap of 10. Spending 3 bars allows your party members to interact with each other mid-battle, causing a multitude of effects. If Aubrey interacts with Kel, it starts an argument and Aubrey becomes angry, which raises her attack. Now, if Kel interacts with Aubrey, he throws her a ball that she knocks out of the park, which does a ton of damage to the enemy. Yeah, every character has a unique interaction with every other character, and the effects of their combos range from emotional changes to raw damages and buffs to even healing HP or juice. I won't spoil it all, but you should really try it all for yourselves. What I will tell you is about release energy. When your bar reaches 10 socks, Omori and his friends come together for an all-out attack, doing some serious damage. It's up to you to decide how the flow of the combat will go. The world itself is beautiful and vibrant. Every area was distinct from all the others, with their own background music and populated by locals and enemies you wouldn't see anywhere else in the game. All the enemies of the game managed to get a good laugh out of me, either by following a trend like the Dust Bunny, the Space Bunny, the Forest Bunny, the Forest Bunny, or by the absurdity of their design and skills. There's a massive list I could go through with so much more than just bunnies, but I urge you to see it for yourself. Naturally, the boss designs are phenomenal, but with the spoiler-heavy nature of the game, I don't want to say anything else about it other than wow. I consider myself a big music nerd, being able to easily pick up on the motifs and remixes of tracks used in the media I consume. Omori does a wonderful job with the music. With tracks so good, I couldn't help but add them to the playlists I used for work or for the gym. The music reinforces the emotions you'll feel when you go through them, causing a double whammy of cheerfulness, sadness, terror, or hype. Did anyone else grow up watching Toonami on Cartoon Network? I was on a real breakcore kick at the time I was playing this game, and then this song played during a really heated battle. I could honestly yab about the music all day because so many tracks are instant hits to me, but instead I'll share a snippet of a few of them to give you a good mix. Keep in mind this is an indie game, and you can really feel the love and purpose behind every track. This is as far as I can go without saying anything else that doesn't relate to the narrative. So if I haven't at least piqued your interest, then I suggest you watch the trailers for the game. And if that hasn't sold you on this game, I'll do my best to give you some very light setup for the game and why Omori is one that you don't want to overlook. The premise of the game is nice and simple. After a tutorial to get familiar with the mechanics, you reminisce with your friends about the good times you all had. Yourself, Kel, Aubrey, Hiro, Mari, and Basil. Truthfully, I never learned to pronounce his name properly the whole playthrough, so I'm just gonna call him Basil. As you're working on the photo album in his house, Basil sees something that wasn't meant to be seen. Before you can even absorb what's going on, boom, you're back in white space, where the journey began. The game starts here with a door to begin your fun adventure, but now that door is gone. There's nothing to do, there's nothing to see, just emptiness. Waiting for something to happen? Nothing does. This is the response that you get with everything that you try to observe. The only thing that Omori can do for progression here is to look in his menu and see a very interesting action. Stab. So you do it. And as far as light story spoilers go, this is the last chance to turn back and experience it for yourself. You get asked if your name is Sunny. You awaken surrounded by darkness. Instead of the magical pastel colors you were getting used to, instead you're met with more muted colors you'd see in a nearly empty house. Your mom left you a voicemail saying she'll be picking you up in a few days. You get hungry, so you head to the kitchen.
Oh my god. You know, actually the knife is a good thing, bro. I feel more comforted about.
You take some cold steak out of the fridge and try to heat it up. It does not sit well. And then...
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know about...
You hear Mari's voice coming from the other side of the door, asking you to let her in. What will you do?
Not a big fan of jump scares, but... Oh my fuck. Oh my.
Anyway, Sunny goes to sleep and boom, again, back in the dream world. As I stated earlier, your friends are curious as to where Basil is. He seems to have disappeared since seeing something in the photo album. So the adventure begins to find Basil, with the knowledge that in 3 days, Sunny will be moving. Skipping past the events of day 1 in the dream world, you end up back in Sunny's POV. There's a knock on the door. Again, are you gonna answer? Are you gonna let the terror from a previous choice stop you and traumatize you? Or are you ready to face it head on, despite that fear? I think it's only fair to warn everybody this choice does matter. And since I'm a very stubborn guy, I choose to open the door. And what I saw started to click everything into place.
Okay. Whoa! Oh, he looks cool as fuck.
It was Kel, but noticeably older. Our boy knew we would be leaving in a few days, so he wanted to spend some time with us while he could. He tells us that we haven't been out of the house in 3 years, making us a hikikomori, a person going through severe societal withdrawal and seeks isolation and confinement. By breaking the cardinal sin of being a hikikomori, something happens. The events of the game are set into motion all thanks to Kel, who initiated this by knocking on your door. Had he not, maybe Sunny doesn't confront anything at all. Waiting for something to happen? This is it. You and Kel explore Faraway Town, a chill suburban town like so many others. Another character is revealed at the park, a reveal far more shocking than Kel's.
Ooh. Da-na-na-na-na. Oh. Is that Aubrey? Yeah!
Aubrey's grown up a bit too, though her transformation is far more drastic. She looks at you with piercing eyes. The bubbly, joyful girl is long gone. Instead, you get a violent, foul-mouthed version of a once beloved party member. Harassing Basil over his photo album, you fight to get it back. Aubrey is strong, stronger than you or Kel. But when Sunny attacks her with a standard weapon, a knife, reality kicks in hard. Dude, Sunny just stabbed Aubrey with a knife. A steak knife, I believe. Looking at this not as the player, but as a spectator, what does this say about Sunny, who was willing to stab one of his closest friends? How delusional is he to do this so casually? This isn't the fun Headspace world, this is real. Friends drift apart, it's a natural thing in life, but what event happened that led things to end up this way? This is now the end of the minor spoiler territory, and now we're leading into the core of the game itself. I've given you guys the surface level premise of the game, find Basil, and have an incredible journey with your besties. I've given you the mysteries to look forward to, Sunny, Kel, and Aubrey, but older and very different. There's no other way for me to proceed other than to talk about the elephant in the room. Please turn back and play the game now, okay? This video is still gonna be here. Save it to your watch later, like and subscribe, all that good stuff, right? I do appreciate it if you do this, but seriously, for your own good, you don't want this spoiled, okay? One of the members of the friend group has passed away. It turns out to be Mari, Sunny's older sister. You don't learn this too far into the game, but once you know it, going back to the dream world, which I will now refer to as its actual name, Headspace, becomes much more tragic. Putting the pieces together, even with limited knowledge, you think you can see the big picture. Sunny's sister died, he became a shut-in to avoid facing the pain of reality. And Headspace becomes quite literal. It's the world he dreams up in his head where he and his friends are captured in time, a picturesque version of themselves, and the sun doesn't really set on their fun. No ugly truth, no regret, nothingness. Headspace is where the biggest laughs in my playthrough happened, but every now and then a dose of reality does rush in and you receive a desperate reminder that things are not okay. It's bittersweet to know the events in Headspace aren't real, and knowing Mari's fate makes every run-in with her feel more grim, more painful, only made worse by how perfect and wonderful of a person she is. Headspace is literally a distraction. A coping mechanism for Sunny to not have to confront the truth. But that's what growing up means, right? Eventually, we all have to grow up. The world can be a messy, frustrating place to be a part of, but growing up means confronting your problems head on, not pushing them away or ignoring them. I think it's finally time that we start talking about what makes this game so good, so easy to get attached to. It's all in the characters. We'll talk about Kel, Aubrey, and Hero with the information I've already presented thus far. Then we'll discuss the characters with all of the information laid out on the table. I've gotta say up front, the more I analyzed Kel, the more I grew to like him and just wanted to talk about him more and more. Kel, as we know him in Headspace, is energetic, strong, and has a good sense of justice. Oftentimes in the story, he'll throw an idea out for the gang, only to be shut down. He can be competitive, but he can be compassionate. Very early on in the game, you play hide and seek, everyone being aware that Omori doesn't like to be alone. Kel poorly hides, but this is just so that he can be a part of the hide and seek game and not leave Omori alone. Kel also always plays rock whenever you guys play Pet Rock, which is just this game's version of rock, paper, scissors. At a glance, I just thought that he was pretty simple and that there wouldn't be much to say about him, but I was only halfway right. Kel is simple, but there's so much more charm that comes from that. Kel and Sunny's friendship is amazing. It's basically the meme of the extrovert friend who adopts the introvert friend. Faraway Kel is even more interesting to discuss. Let's start by saying this. Without Kel being who he is, the redemption in Omori's story doesn't happen at all. Throughout the time, he has become a very empathetic person. Kel is friendly to strangers. You can see him talking to them all the time. He can still occasionally be naive, which can lead to problems, as well as having difficulty reading the room and understanding more complex emotions. He can make bad situations worse because of his carelessness. He confesses to us that after Mari's death, he felt too stupid to help his friends grieve after she passed away. As for himself, the way that he dealt with it was by distracting himself through sports and socializing with other people. His mother tells us that while he was a happy and positive child, She can tell that he was a little lonely. Kel may suffer from smiling depression, but basically not wanting to be a burden on other people, which is pretty clear. He lives in his brother's shadow. While Hiro's side of the shared room is covered in trophies and medals from his successes, Kel's only achievement is in sports. He even took a back seat in the healing process. Knowing his brother needed as much attention as possible to get better, he feels that Hiro needed it more than he did. This is where the magic of Kel kicks in for me. Aubrey and Hiro were both extremely close to Mari, but just because we don't get many interactions between Kel and Mari doesn't mean that he didn't care for her as well. When trying to help his friends after Mari's death, he thinks to himself what Mari would do, what she would feel. He lacks the tools to help his friends, so he tries his best and uses the memory of Mari to guide him through this complicated time in all their lives. He's trying to emulate Mari's compassion and her ability to help others. If Kel wasn't the kind of person he was, the story doesn't happen. He is the engine and the spirit of the story. In conclusion, his fierce loyalty to his friends, his simple, straightforward, and lighthearted nature, and his willingness to be vulnerable are all what makes Kels such a heartwarming character. The world would be a better place with more Kels. Headspace Aubrey is both strong-willed and empathetic. She exudes confidence. All these traits make her a valuable friend, but they also make her a very difficult obstacle to overcome in the real world. Of all the characters in the game, Aubrey is easily the one with the most drastic change inside and out. She dyes her hair, keeping a promise she made with Mari, and even wears Mari's old headband as her own. The teal eye contacts complete the look. Mari's death seems to have hit Aubrey badly. The two had a relationship that felt like they were sisters. While Kel dealt with Mari's death the healthiest out of the three, Aubrey may have dealt with it in the worst and most destructive way. So let's examine it step by step. Everyone grieves differently. Kel's feelings were neglected in priority of Hiro's, who we'll get to next. So Kel absorbed himself in sports and socializing. Aubrey did not like that. She felt as though all her friends neglected her and didn't care too much about Mari's passing. I think the last straw for her was the photo album. Basil had a photo album with years worth of memories of the friend group. Aubrey, desperate to keep an old friend close, convinces Basil to let her come over to study. As she sees the album, she finds all the pictures blacked out by marker. Angrily, she took the photo album. Kel defends Basil blindly, which just makes her more angry since he doesn't even know the full story. And in their first reunion of the three close friends, you end up fighting her. And while she has a bat with nails on it, Sunny brings a knife. Wait, what? So after a misunderstanding and being stabbed by Sunny, we catch her at the church. She comes here every day to try to find peace in Mari's death. The churchgoers are gossiping negatively about her and both pity and praise her mother for having to take care of such an unruly child. There's some serious layers to Aubrey here. Further in the game, we actually get to see what her home life is like when we see her house. It's a filthy mess, unfit for anyone to live in. Trash bags filling the living area, flies all over the place, and an unresponsive mother to top it all off. But wait, because we also know that she had a father that was strict with her. Where did he go? There isn't enough info in the game to give a direct answer, but this couldn't have gone positively for her. This is a bubbly young girl with so much love in her heart. Even beyond her trauma, she is still able to hope that Sunny finds peace and happiness when she's struggling to find that for herself. I obsessed over Aubrey quite a bit because I knew someone who was exactly like her, a positive, warm-hearted person, always full of kindness for others and extremely empathetic. Through some horrible life events, I did eventually see this person become much like Faraway Town's Aubrey, filled with rage, snappy to everybody, no empathy or tolerance for others. It broke my heart the more I learned about Aubrey because it felt like I was going through the same path of seeing someone I love become someone I didn't really like. Now, despite the pain that Aubrey went through, it's nobody's responsibility to help her work through that grief, especially the people around her who were also grieving and unequipped to fix the situation properly. The only person who could have helped her was the person they were all grieving for in the first place, so it's a pretty rough situation. While it does hurt me to see Aubrey going through everything she did, it doesn't excuse her destructive actions that she chose to do in retaliation. But like I said, Aubrey's story isn't all about that anger. After all that pain, she still does have hope towards the future. She finds friends who look out for her, she's able to express her emotions better than most of the characters we know, and she's able to genuinely wish the best for the people she cares about and look positively towards that future. This next character might be my personal favorite. I found myself relating to him and his experiences a bit too much. Hiro is extremely charismatic. He acts as the peacemaker / referee between Kel and Aubrey's squabbles. He's talented at everything he does, and he's humble about it, saying everyone exaggerates his skills. Headspace Hiro is cool because even his gameplay synergizes with that role he has on the team. He plays an almost fully supportive role. He heals us and keeps the emotions we have in check, letting Omori, Aubrey, and Kel be the stars. This is how he is in real life. He's always happy to put others ahead of himself. This next part is much more difficult for me to talk about because it hits really close to home. It's clear in the photo album pictures that Hiro and Mari were romantically involved. The two of them had the ideal picturesque relationship. Imagine having that and then your partner takes their life. Something close to this did happen to me, and it was by far the worst pain I'd experienced, and I was in my early 20s when it happened. Hiro was only 16. I thought I would die from the heartache, but I forced myself to learn to move on. I had a handful of friends who helped me heal, but we were all adults. Hiro's story differs here. After Mari's death, he fell into a deep depression, pushing away everybody who cared about him and even lashing out at poor Kel, who tried to help his brother get out of this misery. I think this was the turning point for both of the boys, with Kel seeing his parents comforting Hiro and not him, and Hiro seeing his brother in pain and knowing he needs to move on, not just for himself but everyone in his life. As well as from what Kel tells us, Hiro's gotten better, but he's still quite closed off from how he used to be. He buried himself in his studies like Kel did with sports and making friends, but the pain runs deep. One of my favorite scenes in Omori comes at the end of night 2, where Hiro and Sunny are in the piano room missing Mari, and when Sunny leaves the room and comes back, Hiro can be seen playing the piano, likely a skill he picked up to have a piece of Mari to keep with him, and he's seen crying over the piano, saying her name, showing that while he's made progress to heal, every now and then that grief does still exist. Near the end of the game, we see a picture of the two of them with a quote saying that they're a match made in heaven. This totally destroyed me. Hiro, whose real name is Henry, is an extremely relatable young man. He is no hero. He's just a guy that people were relying on, and the person he loved most was taken from him in the most tragic way possible. Even then, he's able to fix the problems that the teens have in just a day of being back. He can be Hiro, the super dependable guy with all the answers, and he can be Henry, the boy overcome with grief, unable to keep the friends together when it fell apart. He isn't perfect, he knows that, and that's okay. Here's the fun thing about discussing Omori in the way that I have. We've talked about Kel, Aubrey, and Hiro. We talked about their grief, why I love them, and how well written and relatable they are. The three of them also have something in common. They don't know the truth. So talking about them without that context is okay, because for them it doesn't change anything at all. With these next three characters, that cat has to be out of the bag. So let's start with Mari. This is the absolute final spoiler warning in the video. If you haven't played Omori yet, please just go and play it now. I want everybody to be able to take part in discussing everything and anything that they have on their mind after playing it. Alright, here we go. When it comes to headspace, Mari is our safe haven. She's the breath of relief after a bunch of fighting and puzzles. I was always eager to have a picnic and just chat with the gang, giving really comfortable moments to just chat with them. This is the feeling that Mari embodies. She is comfort. She is love. She's literally our safe zone, our safe haven, and our full heal. She has her own theme song, and the more you learn in Faraway Town, the more gut-wrenching it is every time you see her. Thematically, Mari being the save point works on multiple levels. It means in Headspace that she's always tucked away from danger, away from harm, and perfectly preserved in our memories. Mari is the reason Headspace exists. She's also the source of the sudden horror that the game sells itself on, and not knowing what something is and having unnerving things happen during a fun, colorful adventure was a very brave and well-executed decision. Sunny's getting brief flashes of terrors through the things he's trying to suppress. Even though we know early on that she does die, her caring nature pierces through Headspace. The flowers that Basil associates with Mari were the white egret orchid, and they have a meaning to them. My thoughts will follow you into your dreams. I called it pretty early in the game that at some point, the song that was meant to be joyful and signify safety would eventually be used to make me cry. And the very last picnic of the game, I was right.
Every time I think I'm done crying, it comes back harder. Also, look at Aubrey. You see the shifty eyes? Look at Kel! If the game ended right here, I'd be satisfied.
Throughout the game, she's Sunny's guiding voice when he goes through these horrible experiences. She's the one that helps him work through his trauma. She wants him to face his fears. She wants him to forgive himself. And most importantly, she wants him to find happiness. Basil is the timid member of the group, and the last to join the friend group. There's plenty of dialogue that says he feels like a burden to those around him. Since he doesn't appear in Headspace much at all, we actually learn a lot about him through the real world, and for good reason. He's an anxiety-filled and sensitive young man, only made worse through Aubrey and the hooligans picking on him. Even through all that trauma, Basil is extremely loyal and caring for his friends. He could have alleviated the harassment from Aubrey by telling her who really destroyed the photo album, but will go to extreme lengths to protect Sunny. This includes being involved in the game's biggest secret.
So then, she didn't kill herself. Omori kills his sister, and then I guess Basil covered it up. Holy shit. Oh, that's the last picture. No fucking way. No fucking way. This, like, changes the context of the whole game.
Mari did not commit suicide. She and Sunny had an argument relating to a recital that the two would be performing. Sunny pushed Mari and she fell down the stairs, which killed her. In a shocked state, Sunny brought her body to the bed, where Basil finds them. Fully believing Sunny is innocent and couldn't have done this, he comes up with a plan to have Mari's death appear as a suicide, a secret so foul that neither boy can speak of it again, not to anybody, not even to each other. And if that wasn't bad enough, they looked back. This image scars them both, haunted by the eye looking at them. This image ends up being what something is, the visual that haunts Sunny throughout Headspace and the real world. Basil's something looks like a black mess of hair given birth from the image of Mari hanging on the tree. We'll be covering Sunny's coping mechanism soon, but Basil's coping is clear. He doubled down on his gardening hobby and held on to the memories contained in his photo album, which is his most treasured possession. Just like Sunny, his coping mechanism begins to fall apart when his grandmother becomes sick, which is shown through his neglect of his plants. This, plus the news that Sunny is going to be moving away in 3 days, means that the chance for closure is ending soon. With so many similarities to Sunny, the biggest difference is that Sunny repressed the events of that day. Basil didn't. He remembers it all too clearly. So accepting what he did is the first step to confronting it. But I think that moving on for Basil is impossible. He was willing to do everything, take on an enormous burden just for Sunny. To move on, he'd have to tell someone what happened that day, which would mean betraying Sunny, which is something that we know he could never do under any circumstance. So when the weight of their choices overwhelms him, he takes his own life. I'll talk very cautiously during this next bit, because in my opinion, this is the darkest that the game ever gets. In all endings but one, Basil kills himself, and the friends are the ones that discover him. Knowing how badly Mari's suicide impacted them, added by the fact that Aubrey bullied him and almost drowned him a day prior, I can't imagine anything worse happening to this group. Summarized by maybe the most grim line in the game: why does this keep happening to us? Sunny can go into the room and see Basil with a hole in his chest and his something behind him. Once he leaves the room, the door disappears. Sunny's ability to repress trauma or his delusions of the real world are so powerful, the door literally ceases to exist. Aubrey asks Basil for forgiveness. Hero does his best to help even now. He tells Sunny to go home, to move tomorrow and have a fresh start, no longer being able to say with confidence that everyone is going to be okay. And to crank up the impact of the final night, in a few of the endings of the game, Sunny also kills himself after the Basil suicide. A double suicide on the same night, with the friend trio left to never know the truth behind the death of half their friends. The damage from this is unthinkable. One thing I really couldn't wrap my head around is why a 12-year-old Basil would know how to stage a suicide. As far as we know, he wouldn't have a reason to do so while being friends with the group, as it all seemed to be beautiful and perfect. We know his parents somewhat neglect him because they're always busy and he's stuck with a grandmother, so it's a bit of a mystery to me why he would have this knowledge. It doesn't seem to me like that was the thing he was planning to do to himself at the time of Mari's death. Despite being one of the least seen characters in the game, Basil's story is tragic and full of the darkest paths that I've ever seen a character travel in any media. It's devastating to me that Basil's fate is literally dependent on Sunny's choices, because we know how far Basil will go for the people he loves. Basil makes himself vulnerable for the people he cares about, just like Kel, just like Aubrey, and just like Hero. Where do I even begin to unravel these characters? Omori and Sunny. Let's start with a surface level observation and work our way deeper. Sunny has a deeply screwed up relationship with food. Look at just how many food-based enemies and references there are in Headspace. To say that he suffers from malnutrition is no surprise to anybody, but something I brushed off early in the game was this cold steak. The cold steak tells quite the story, doesn't it? Before knowing how deep and metaphorical the game is, I just thought Sonny was dumb, desperate for food, or so disassociated with reality he microwaved a steak in a house with no power. Shout out to Sonny's parents for leaving their teenage son in a house with no food or power and hoping for the best. So he eats a cold, uncooked, and if there was no power in the house, spoiled steak. And he throws it up. Aubrey points out how malnourished he is, and Kel and Hiro's dad offers him a burger. You can say it's common courtesy to feed the friends of your kids, but if you're like me, and your friend's mom essentially adopts you as one of their own, this hits a lot harder. Everyone in town knows the story about Mari. They know Sonny's a shut-in, and what he must have been through. So shout out to Mr. Dad for making sure that Sonny's eating something. The neglect from Sonny's parents also has to be brought up. As far as we know, Sonny hasn't been in school since the incident. He hasn't stepped out of his house at all. Seeing as how malnutrition doesn't start in a day, it means he hasn't been properly fed for years. While I can't begin to imagine the sorrow that Sonny's parents had after the suicide of their daughter, their neglect of Sonny is inexcusable. There actually is a parallel between Mari and Sonny with Hiro and Kel. Mari was a perfectionist, and Hiro is talented at everything he does. Sonny has self-esteem issues, as shown by his feelings of inadequacy. Mari wanted him to practice and be better and prepared for their duet. Kel is just vibing, and let's be honest, he's comfortable living in his brother's shadow with no real pressure to live up to his sibling. Kel's neglect is only felt when Hiro lashes out at him after Mari's death, and when both boys are crying, it's Hiro who receives comfort and is consoled. Parental neglect is everywhere in this game, with Sonny's parents post-time skip, Aubrey's dad being out of the picture, and her mom is a slop. Kel is ignored to prioritize Hiro, and Basil's parents stick him with his grandmother, who herself needs an aide. The pressure for Sonny to live up to Mari's standards, along with his frustration at Mari for not understanding that he just isn't good enough, and him not having anywhere to direct that negativity except at Mari herself, is what starts everything. She blocks his way, not wanting Sonny to run away from his problems, which is ironic because that's something that Sonny is quite gifted at. This frustration explodes into an aggressive but innocent push. An honest mistake, truly. One that begins the living nightmare of Omori. Sonny suffers from dissociative amnesia. For those that don't know, this is when your brain blocks out information or memories, and it stems from trauma, abuse, or neglect. These are all things that Sonny has experienced. I understand this all too well because I was also diagnosed with this too. At the age of 19, I lost one of my parents to cancer, and since I was enlisted in the Marine Corps at the time, I wasn't given much slack to try to process everything that was happening. Add this to the typical stress of being enlisted, and it led to me experiencing the next year and a half stationed in Okinawa as a giant blur. It almost felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. I was doing things and talking to people, but it felt like someone was doing it on my behalf, as if I was in the world on a third-person perspective. I didn't expect this at all coming into this game, but these feelings apply really cleanly to what Headspace is. Headspace is Sonny's imagination world, where he can safely relive the best parts of his childhood, with the ideal versions of the memories of his friends. Headspace is such a brilliant setting for so many reasons. Because it's all information based off of a sick Sonny, and really through Omori who has his own agenda, everything can be a reference, a metaphor, or even just a blatant lie. In Headspace, Kel's favorite drink is milk, and he hates Orange Joe. In reality, he loves Orange Joe, and he hates milk. In Headspace, Aubrey is fairly frequently crushing on Omori, be it through dialogue in game or through their interactions in combat. But with everything in Headspace as an unreliable narrator, what is actually true and what's just a distraction? Is Kel actually as annoying as he is in Headspace? Or was he meant to be so abrasive to discourage Sunny from interacting with Kel IRL? He seems like an almost completely different person than he does in Headspace. And if everything in Headspace means something in real life, then why did Sunny dream up the slime girls?
What do you mean by that?
But seriously, were they a metaphor for some sexual frustration? He would be the age where an interest in relationships would commonly occur. Maybe he combined his interest in girls with his fear of talking to them, and through his fear of water for their theming. In Headspace, Aubrey seems to be in love with Omori, but everything we know from the real world tells us that it was actually Sunny who was secretly crushing on her. I know Humphrey was based off of a book called Hungry Humphrey, found only in the Omori route, but I came to see him as a representation of the unbearable starvation that Sunny went through. Even Sweetheart can be viewed with significance, representing Sunny's toxic relationship with self-love. Sweetheart is comically narcissistic, to the point of being unlovable. Maybe Sunny sees himself as someone undeserving of being redeemed, deserving of love. The 3 progression roadblocks in the game are pretty straightforward. Sunny's fear of heights, spiders, and water. Born from when a spider freaked him out, causing him to fall a great height into faraway lake and almost drowned, until Mari saved him, only making what he ends up doing to her sting even more. If Headspace is the joyful playground where his trauma isn't seen, then where is that tucked away? It's black space. Every now and then, creepy things pop up during the Headspace sections, an occasional reminder that things are not what they seem. When actually diving into black space, everything kind of clicks into place. This is where the forbidden thoughts and memories are locked away and suppressed very tightly, brilliantly represented as a black light bulb, a symbol that traditionally means having an idea. Yet another great metaphor in a game that is full of them. I took this to mean that black space was Sunny's subconscious thoughts given a visible form. At the very least, the black light bulb symbolizes the suppression of a thought. As for black space itself, it is pure hell. A hell that contains Basil's Headspace counterpart, because he's a threat to things staying the way that they are. This is why Basil keeps being killed whenever Omori is near the truth. But exactly who is behind Headspace, behind black space? Who's the one that keeps stopping progress, keeping things in a loop so they stay the same? This game does something that I love. Show, don't tell. Omori has the confidence to tell his story and trust you, the player, to understand what's happening without any text or dialogue needed. Omori ascends to a red throne and takes his seat, assisted by the red hands that have been stopping us from finding the truth the entire game. The red hands representing the blood that he spilled, blood that can never be washed away. In Headspace, Omori is essentially a god, so let's get into it. Remember all the photos in Basil's album? These weren't just memories, they were important childhood experiences captured in time. And while most of them weren't some crazy key event in Sunny's life, that doesn't really matter. Sometimes it's the little mundane moments that mean the most. Memory Lane somehow caught me by surprise, not expecting to play out the events in the album, which at that point I had seen so many times, I memorized them. Sunny's problem is that he shut himself in and refused to confront his trauma, not allowing himself to feel, stopping him from experiencing anything at all. That's no way to live your life. Making yourself vulnerable to others can hurt you, but it can lead to healthy, wonderful bonds and experiences that you can't forget. If you don't believe me, what do you think Headspace is? It's all of those memories repeated constantly, but warped to be Sunny's ideal happy place. Mari can't get hurt Basil can't reveal the truth, and there's no risk of confronting this ugly truth or growing at all. Memory Lane represents Sunny's bittersweet journey and the human yearning to experience new things and make close bonds. It hurts, but he needs to move on. Literally. The game asks you every time if you're ready to move on from one memory to the next, as if you're literally leaving the memory behind for good. And the final thing that he needs to confront.
Hey, man. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I need you anymore.
Omori is complex. Since we know Sunny has dissociative amnesia, which can sometimes feel as though you're having an out-of-body experience or being on autopilot, he's just going through the motions. Omori's whole purpose is to protect and ultimately distract Sunny by maintaining headspace, providing him with fun adventures and tucking Basil, aka the Stranger, away in black space. Remember, the main mission of the game is to find Basil, but we're constantly being sidetracked and at some points even gaslit into forgetting what we set off to do in the first place. This is all Omori's work. The disconnect between Sunny and Omori is clear when he keeps killing Basil, which is the game taking control out of the player's hands, Sunny's hands. Sunny is and isn't Omori. Omori was born out of necessity, and Sunny watches the world of Headspace through Omori's eyes, but we all know who's really in control. With Omori turning on his creator, the two are fully opposed to each other and begin the final battle.
This is some Persona shit. I'll face myself. Oh, hey, King, put that shit down.
Omori represents all of Sunny's fears, the regret, the frustration, the pain, and all of his insecurities. Sunny takes all the experiences he has to challenge Omori, all the love from his friends, from his sister, and the lessons he learned from facing his traumas. Even Mari's spirit wants him to forgive himself. Just as victory seems possible,
Omori did not succumb. Yo!
Omori does not succumb. The mechanic that was present from the first moment of the game, that resilience to never give up. Now Omori refuses to do so against his own creator. Imagine someone knowing your darkest secrets and insecurities. Imagine them using that against you. Sunny's feelings of inadequacy, of being a taker and not a giver, of being a waste of space, a person who isn't worthy of love or forgiveness. You loved Mari. She loved you, and you killed her. Your friends loved her, and you killed her. And for that, you should just die.
Really? No, hold on. I keep forgetting to breathe. The face scaring him is just so sad. Do you want to continue? Come on now. Is this the duet? No, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. Oh my fucking god. No. 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 Oh my god.
This is the best display of closure I've ever seen a character receive. Playing the duet with your sister that you never got to perform. The memory is both bitter and beautiful. Sunny and Omori embrace. Omori, no longer serving a purpose, disappears, allowing years of guilt, terror, grief, and anger that he suppressed wash over him all at once, allowing himself to be vulnerable, to be able to feel, to forgive himself. No more living in the past. It's time to create new memories.
Fuck, wait, my glasses are actually fucked up. And the game is fucked up. Fuck, okay, I'm screwed. Flowers from Charlene's family. Dear Sunny, thank you for your help during the summer. Woo! I felt really choked up. Hope you're okay, man. Oh. Oh my god. He's gonna tell them.
In my almost 30 years of playing video games, no game has made me laugh or cry as much as Omori did. I think categorizing it as a horror RPG allows it to tell a deep, intimate story that refuses to compromise or hold anything back. The themes in Omori are so dark and uncomfortable that the horror genre is the only place that a story like this can exist. Everything that happens in the real world in this game can totally happen at any point in our own world. I found so many relatable aspects in each of the characters of the game. Hiro's story was one that was shockingly similar to mine, both in being someone that people depend on and also having lost the love of my life. Knowing someone that was so much like Aubrey made her story so painful for me. And just like Sunny, I also had dissociative amnesia, working myself to the bone and not remembering any of it, just going through the motions and not letting myself feel anything for over a year. It's just a taste of what Sunny went through. During that time in my life, I was given so much love, sympathy, and patience from the people close to me. I'll call them Kels. I'm extremely blessed to have so many Kels in my life, genuinely. This ends my experience with Omori. If you made it this far, thank you all so much. This video is very different from the usual fun adventures that I share here on YouTube and on Twitch. I'm nervous, but very curious to hear what you all think of this video, the observations I made, and the theories that the community would like to discuss. I believe the magic of Omori has earned it a loving community, and for the algorithm to know that people still have interest for Omori in 2024, liking the video would help and is greatly appreciated. If you had fun watching, consider subscribing as well. I'd appreciate that a ton as well. I'm a small creator, but I do put my heart into every video I create. If you want to be part of the experience, you can also stop by Twitch and drop a howdy my way. I'm immensely proud of the community I have there. You're gonna be welcomed in. We crack jokes, we share stories, and even play games together. We even raise money for charity at the end of 2023 to help fight against breast cancer, a cause that I strongly believe in. Really, what it all boils down to is that none of this is possible without your support. Thank you all once again, and until next time, peace.